We have readings today about the resurrection for sure. It's about the good news of the resurrection from the Old Testament to the New Testament. Now, Jesus is talking obviously to people that have never read the New Testament when he's talking to these people in Bethany. When he talks to the disciples in Galilee, they've never or they don't have the benefit of what we heard. They did not understand that there was a difference between the resurrection and resuscitation. And so what we have here is Jesus resuscitating Lazarus after 4 days. We know that can't happen. Somebody can't be dead for 4 full days and be resuscitated. So we might want to think that it is a resurrection, but Lazarus is going to die again and be subject to the same judgment that we are for his resurrection. And so it helps us to delve into this gospel reading, I think, to understand it. Jesus tells them, he immediately jumps into action upon hearing that Lazarus is sick and waits 2 days before he takes the 2-day trip to get back, at least 2-day trip to get back to Bethany. And so we wonder that, humanly we wonder, why did he wait? And then when he's getting ready to go, the disciples, he think that they made a lucky getaway from the Jews of Judea, that they were trying to stone their Lord, and they got away just in time. They don't realize that Jesus was in charge the whole time. That Jesus wasn't getting away from them so much. It wasn't his time. They weren't going to be able to touch him with a rock until it was his time. They wouldn't be able to put thorns on his head or scourge him at the pillar or nail him to a cross, any of that stuff, until it's his time. Once it's his time, then and only then can they lay hands on him. When he knows that. But the disciples don't know that yet. And then he goes, and so he is trying to get through to them the spiritual meaning behind what he's doing by speaking in ways that they can understand. And so in ways that they can understand are also ways that we can understand. So then he tells them, you walk in the light. For 12 hours a day it's light, and you walk and you don't stumble because you can see the rocks, you can see the problems in the path. But he is making that a metaphor for the light of him, that they now can walk in his light, that they don't have to worry about metaphorical stumbling, that his light is there for them to lead them. And so they are going back so that they can believe, so that they can truly make the gospel part of their lives. And so they go back and they get there. Now 4 days. 4 days is interesting because there was a line of thought at that time, and maybe still exists, that the soul would stay with the body for 3 days. But nobody thought it was longer than that at that time. And so clearly he was dead. You could just imagine the sisters for those 3 days holding out hope that Jesus would get there in time to resuscitate him, in time to what they thought meant resurrect him. And yet he waits that extra day, and he gets there. Lazarus has been gone for 4 days. And they come and they say, Lord, we know that if you had been here, we know that if you had been here, he'd be okay. Yes, and it keeps going on like that and going on. And we understand. And we understand them, that they don't quite understand what's going on. And then Mary comes to him, and of course the Jews, the really good people that came, at least they came to comfort Mary. They really were there to comfort her. Now, of course, when they see Jesus, they stop being good, right? And then Jesus wept. It's interesting. He was perturbed and greatly troubled. He showed human emotion. A lot of times, we say that Jesus wept, and we say, oh, it's because he wept at the death of his good friend Lazarus. Well, he already said that he was glad that Lazarus had died. He was glad that he had died because, oh, look at that, I forgot to turn the mic back on. Okay, so we can't say cut because this is live. So we know that Lazarus was dead to the world. Not just asleep, but asleep to the world. But that Jesus was going to perform his greatest sign. That he brought him back to life. Jesus wasn't upset that he was dead. He was upset at the unbelief that he was seeing from his disciple, Mary. That she would be so upset at what was going on, at the death of Lazarus, that her but yet he is merciful and forgiving. He doesn't let that overtake him. He weeps because quite likely he thought that she was understanding, that she was truly believing. But he brings her to that full faith, doesn't he? Because he brings Lazarus back to life. He resuscitates him to show the power that he has over life and death. And he shows us that. And so we have this opportunity again and again to share in his wonderful gifts, to share in his word, that his word abides in us as it had abided in his disciples at the time. Imperfectly, of course. That's why he has to continue to be merciful to us, because we are so imperfect. He may well still feel perturbed at us when we show the lack of faith, but he always loves us. He never stops loving us, just like he didn't stop loving Mary, and he didn't stop loving those Jews. He was just as upset. Not that they were going to kill him, but that they wanted to kill him. Not because it was going to hurt him, because they were going to kill him, but that they wouldn't turn to the belief, that they allowed that those problems to be so much a part of their life, that they couldn't stop thinking as humans do, and start thinking as God does. So let us take from that we need to, in our human way, as is possible, that we need to work and strive to think as God does, to think in spiritual terms.